Ravens when he was a Super Bowl champion with the 47-yard reception back in his days playing, and he also played with Peyton Manning to end his career, and that's our good buddy Qadry Ismail. Q, it's Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. here in Philadelphia. How are you?
Fellas, what's going on? I'm excited to see how this year's Super Bowl and the elements, how it all plays out.
Well, that's definitely something interesting to look at because you have Peyton Manning, who played in a dome for the majority of his career in Indianapolis, and then you have a team that's more ground and pound with an explosive quarterback as well in Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. But I have a quick question for you, and I know you played only 1 year with Peyton Manning, and each and every time we hear Peyton play, he yells out, "Omaha, Omaha." Do you have any idea what Omaha means, or is it just something that really is just a decoy?
With Peyton Manning and the way his offense works, they feel that the snap count and the cadence is an easy weapon to use and utilize. And when Peyton goes to all his histrionics and sitting there trying to get the defense to declare itself 3-4, 4-3, zone scheme to your right or to your left, who's going to be, in what coverage, all that, and he tries to show or get the defense to show its hand via his cadence. And so oftentimes guys will have like a generic cadence and they'll go through it, and the defense kind of picks up on when they can get to the quarterback or jump off the snap and gain an advantage over the offensive lineman or whatever. With this being said, I think for Omaha, sometimes it's used to say, look, I'm going to go ahead and you, the center, you go ahead and snap it whenever you're ready. I'm ready. Or Omaha could be a dummy call, and simply put, if you think you, the defense, think that you can pick it and say, okay, I know what Omaha means, but then that's when he changes it up. He does a very good job of really keeping you on your toes, and it's to the point where you almost got to ignore him and just play your defense straight up.
Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl and defeated the Chicago Bears down in South Florida, and those were in some bad conditions as there was some rain. Nothing that he shouldn't expect, though, when it's compared to what's coming on Sunday in New York. And you look at Peyton Manning, he has that Super Bowl ring like we mentioned, and he has a tremendous offense this year with Eric Decker, both Thomases, and you look at his team, it's really remarkable what he is doing, but everyone still knocks him for that playoff record and even that early exit last year up against your Baltimore Ravens, who eventually went on to win the Super Bowl. If he's able to seal the deal on Sunday and get the victory, what does this win do to his legacy?
Yeah, it's funny because he was saying, you know what, it's funny, I'm not even done playing, and right away everyone wants to talk about my legacy. It's one of those things where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I know he gets a lot of credit for putting his team in position to win and really do a fine job of it. But then I think the flip side of it is true, and it goes along with the territory that, if you're going to get all the credit, well, then if something goes wrong, you're going to get a lot of the blame. And I think for Peyton, when you look at the regular season, how he really just slices and dices up teams so quickly. Then all of a sudden, when you're looking at it, he's struggling in the playoffs. You got to look at that and say, okay, well, what is that? If you are such a dominant, quarterback, then the playoffs should be one where that should be your playground. And all the quarterbacks that have been playing the game that are top-level quarterbacks, they've all been in a echelon of what have you done in the postseason when it matters the most. And that's where Peyton's at right now. I think for him to win the Super Bowl, he will have multiple championships, and it'll be something where people will look back on and say, yeah, he's arguably one of the top 5, if not top 3 greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game.
Qadry Ismail joins the main event with Zach Gelb and Chase Sr. Q, it's Chase. I know your stint with the Colts was brief, but what was it like playing with Peyton Manning, who has a PhD-like offensive knowledge, and was it almost overly intense at times because he does take practice and preparation for games so seriously?
I think all of us as competitors, we want to be prepared, and it helps when you have your quarterback, passionate about being prepared and leaving no stone unturned. That being said, though, there are times where it could be a little bit much. For example, if you're running down the football field, 30, 40 yards punch at a time, and Peyton is wanting to get every single rep, well, you got to go with Peyton Manning, and there are times where it's like, man, listen, my legs are done. I need a break, and that's where sometimes for Peyton, he can get a little bit overboard because you're sitting there and you're just thinking, my God, man, we need a break, and he just wants to continue to go. But that's something that you look at and you recognize that that's what sets him apart from other quarterbacks in the league.
This is such a compelling matchup because you have the best offense in the National Football League against the best defense. It's the first time in quite a while that you have two number one seeds squaring off in the Super Bowl. As you know, Richard Sherman came out after the game. He was hyped up after making such an incredible game-winning play. He comes out and says he's the best cornerback in the league. What'd you think of his comments? Because we haven't been on the airwaves in quite a while. And do you believe that Richard Sherman is, in fact, the best cornerback in the National Football League?
Yeah, I think the one thing you look at with Richard, he's an intense guy on the field, and he's a very calculated, smart individual off the field as well. Sometimes that intensity goes a little bit, above and beyond, but, that being said, I don't see him being a distraction to his teammates because, he's all about, trying to compete and be the best he can be. And we all know if you play this game at that quarterback spot, there are going to be plays where you're going to look ugly. And at the same time, you can't sit back and dwell on the ugliness. So you're going to have to hype yourself up as best you can and put yourself in a position to be that guy that can go out there and know that without a shadow of a doubt, I'm not going to give up a big play. And so I think for Richard, when you look at his body of work, they don't throw it to him much. But when they do, it's either an interception or it's a pass defense. And he's gone up against some of the great ones, and he's shut them down. So, just looking at that, you got to say that he, in fact, is the best corner in the league. I haven't seen another guy that has, stood up to the test, the likes of Richard Sherman. So, I put him in that category, and I give him his due. He's the best.
I'm most curious to see how the refs let this one play out, because so far in the playoffs we've seen some games where they're very heavy on pass interference, and some other games they let them go out there and play some football. And I still don't get pass interference in this league because it's just so inconsistent. And you have a physical cornerback like a Richard Sherman up against some of the best wide receivers in the game, whether it's Welker, Eric Decker, or even the Thomases. If you're a receiver, though, and you have Richard Sherman drawn to you early and the big emotions of a Super Bowl game, how much of a distraction on the field is that with all the yapping that Seattle secondary does?
As far as Richard Sherman is talking about things?
Yes, on the field.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a distraction. If you look at it, it's all about, hey, look, all I know is I need to go out there and play my game. If I'm, Demarius Thomas, I know he came out and he was saying, I'm looking forward to the challenge of having this guy go up against me. I mean, that's what it is. You gotta go out there and compete. I think it's a great thing for Demarius Thomas to see what kind of game he has, and I think it's a great thing for Richard Sherman to go ahead and again, put himself in that position to put pressure on himself. That's what football is all about. It's competing at that really extremely hard, high level of competition and see who's going to come out on top.
Manning is one of the best pocket passers to do it, and on the flip side, you have Russell Wilson, who's more of a mobile quarterback, still with the strong arm, as we're talking to the missile, Qadry Ismail of WBAL Super Bowl champion with the Baltimore Ravens. A win for Russell Wilson. Do you see it at all changing the way people scout quarterbacks? Could a win in a Super Bowl maybe help a player like Johnny Manziel's draft stock?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, oftentimes people try to look at, the flavor of the month. And the flavor of the month was, the Wildcat. The flavor of the month, came to be a read option look. Those are flavor of the months. But the thing is, ultimately, if you look at the game, it's about the concepts of, using those in bits and pieces, not having those be the mainstay of your offense. The mainstay of your offense is going to either be, some level of power football, some level of, spreading out a team and running a zone scheme, or some level of a 3-wide or 4-wide, or some level of trying to mismatch if you got a tight end. It's about your personnel, and then it's trying to stick your personnel into a good package to help them succeed. I think if you look at what Tom Brady and them did this year, a remarkable job. They did a remarkable job with such a low level of talent and got the most out of it. That to me really said an awful lot about just the way he prepares and also the way they prepare their teams. They went from an up-tempo style of play, multiple looks, to to more of a, under center, kind of a, okay, let's slow it down, make sure everybody knows what they're doing type of an offense, because that's what their personnel dictated. So you got to know what your personnel is, and you got to go from there.
Q, sticking with some of the physical attributes of a quarterback, do you believe that, arm strength is just a little bit overrated? Because as you know, Peyton Manning doesn't have the strongest arm, but he times his throws better than anyone in the league, and just is so precise with his throws.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily arm strength going to set you apart. It definitely helps. I know that. I know, for example, Joe Flacco, when he's playing in Cleveland and the wind is bad, it helps when he can, sling the ball down the field. I know at the same time, if it's a bad weather game and, the ball is hanging up in the air. I know Cincinnati, Andy Dalton, when he came to Baltimore, it was a windy day and he really struggled with his accuracy and trying to get the ball out. So it has an effect. Arm strength does matter, but I think accuracy and timing matters more. Knowing where your guy is going to be, anticipating where your guy is going to be, and just trying to make it happen. I think that matters more than just sitting there and saying, well, I got a strong arm. I mean, strong arms, without any direction can be overrated.
You look at this coaching matchup as well. It's a pretty impressive one. Pete Carroll comes in from USC after he had a lot of good years there, and before he was even in the NFL with the Patriots and the Jets, and posted a 33-31 record. And you have John Fox on the other side. Came up a little bit short up against the Pats a bunch of years ago when he was the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. How do you like this coaching matchup on Sunday?
Yeah, it's going to be an intriguing one for sure. Both coaches, know that. Shoot, you talk about Peyton Manning legacy. I mean, what the heck? You want your own legacy. John Fox wants to, go ahead and always put the Lombardi for himself. And Jack Del Rio, I'm sure as a D coordinator, it kind of vindicates him. As far as all those years and Jacksonville, and really struggled that went on. Obviously, Pete Carroll has put together a team that, it's all about compete. It's all about high intensity enthusiasm and not being, false about it, but being true about it. And that being said, he, of course, wants to go ahead and validate his system. And the only way you can validate it and say that it really works is that by winning. Obviously, if you win it all, then that's when people are going to be like, wow, what he did was correct. And I think that's something that you're always looking to try to put yourself up on that pedestal of one of the best of all time. And right now, in this league of salary cap and turnover, and Russell Wilson right now is very affordable. Richard Sherman is very affordable. A lot of those guys on that team, they don't have those high price tags. Want to win at all costs now. So when it does come down to making some tough decisions, it's a lot easier when you have a Lombardi and you don't have such a great season because you can't, secure talent because of salary cap reasons, rather than you sit there like, well, we made the playoffs. Well, the playoffs are not good enough at times, or just being talented and just barely missing out on the playoffs. Ask Jim Schwartz how it feels to be a head coach and have a ton of talent but not be able to capitalize on it.
A lot about the Super Bowl in the modern day era is about the festivities that lead up to the big matchup on Sunday. And the displeasure with this game being moved to a cold weather climate is quite understandable because you want to see the two best teams going at it equally on the football field. But do you have any displeasure, or do you disagree with the Super Bowl being moved to a cold weather climate like at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey?
Well, the thing is, the name MetLife, obviously, they purchased it. $1 billion, the unions putting together the stadium and, what it looks like, the politicians and them, politicking for, how it's all going to look. And then the bottom line, it comes down to, hey, what we're going to do? We're going to have a Super Bowl here, and whether you like it or not, if you want to have the stadium, well, you're going to have to go ahead and have a Super Bowl. So, not really a whole heck of a lot you can do. I think from a football standpoint, my take on it, I want to see two teams in their best, not two teams having to adapt and overcome, the outside elements. I think that, it's great for the regular season. There's some, look of it in the postseason as far as the playoffs, but I'd love to see just apples to apples, how good are you? I don't want you to fall down and slip, and the receiver runs by you. Or I don't want you to get an interception because the ball's slippery, and a receiver went through his hands, or you got a sack because the guy can't set his feet in the ground. I want to see some really quality football. That's what I love about the Super Bowl.
On the way out here, as we're talking to the Missile Q, I'll be the first one to tell you, as much as I want to see a blizzard happen on Sunday, I'm kind of disappointed, even being a native New Yorker, that the game is being played in New York/New Jersey, just because I really enjoyed that New Orleans weather last year, and I know we saw each other down at Radio Row, and especially Florida a few years ago. I think you're going to have a lot of the media annoyed just because of personal reasons.
Yeah, go ahead. And
you wanted to wear shorts and a T-shirt. Don't lie to me. Come on.
No one's going to I think the people who really are going to be annoyed are the people who are sitting there and they're like, we're the ones paying this high-priced ticket to really to get into the stadium, and you're telling me we can't have good parking? I got to pay an obscene amount just to go ahead and get into the stadium, let alone the ticket price. So I think the media no one's really going to be listening to those guys, but there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be paying some high-priced dollars in corporate America that's going to be pretty bothered by the fact that they're going to be inconvenienced.
Q, brilliant job as always. We'll see you in New York. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right, fellas, have a great show.
Thanks, Q.
Qadry Ismail right there, Super Bowl champion with the Baltimore Ravens now as their color analyst on WBAL. We'll take a quick break here on the main event, and we'll wrap up shop right after these short messages.